On the Roundtable today, Mayor Bob Filner apologizes for behaving badly and intimidating women who work for him and with him. But Filner refuses to resign, and the longtime supporters who brought sexual abuse allegations to light still want him to step down. Donna Fry said she has, quote, credible evidence of more than one woman being harassed by you. The mayor says he searched his soul and realizes he needs help. I'm Mark Sauer. The Roundtable is next. Joining me at the Roundtable today are Amitha Sharma of KPBS News, David Rowland of San Diego City Beat, and for the first time a non-journalist political scientist, Carl Luna of San Diego Mesa College. Since taking over as mayor, Bob Filner has feuded with the city attorney, battled a variety of power brokers, and become entangled with at least one controversial developer. In the past, he's been able to defend himself and his often coarse style. But this week, his problems escalated. Filner was accused of sexual harassment by several anonymous women, including employees of the mayor's office. And a huge part of this news was who came forward to level these serious complaints. Notable Filner allies. And then he apologized.
I begin today by apologizing to you. I have diminished the office to which you elected me. The charges made at today's news conference are serious. When a friend like Donna Fry is compelled to call for my resignation, I'm clearly doing something wrong. And I've reached into my heart and soul and realized I must and will change my behavior. As someone who has spent a lifetime fighting for equality for all people, I am embarrassed to admit that I have failed to fully respect the women who work for me and with me, and that at times I have intimidated them. It's a good thing that behavior that would have been tolerated in the past is being called out in this generation for what it is, inappropriate and wrong. I am also humbled to admit that I need help. I have begun to work with professionals to make changes in my behavior and approach. In addition, my staff and I will participate in sexual harassment training provided by the city. Please know that I fully understand that only I am the one that can make these changes. If my behavior doesn't change, I cannot succeed in leading our city.
Amitha, let's start with the startling calls for Bob Filner's resignation this week. Prominent progressives Donna Fry, Attorney Corey Briggs, Marco Gonzalez. What did these folks say in their hand-delivered letters to the mayor?
Donna Fry, Mark, as you know, is the beloved, highly respected Democratic figure in this town. She's a former San Diego City Councilwoman. She worked for Bob Filner for a couple of months as Director of Open Government. In a very, very dramatic gesture, she came out this week in a tearful press conference and in a hand-delivered letter and said that she had received credible evidence to suggest that Bob Filner had sexually harassed more than one woman. She said that these women did not make these allegations lightly or without cause. She said that she believes them. And she said that even though these women at this point have chosen to remain silent, she, however, could not keep quiet. And she called on the mayor to step down immediately. She called on San Diego City Council President Todd Gloria to hold a special mayoral election for a replacement. And so there you have it. Now, I do want to make clear from the outset that KPBS and iNewsSource have been working on this story for several months now. We have spoken to women. We have spoken to people who have spoken to these women. The women at this point did not want their circumstances, let alone their names, used on the record. However, my sources have told me that the nature of the conduct we're talking about, the nature of these sexual harassment allegations include groping, inappropriate comments, and kissing.
Okay, and that's been a specific buzz in the last couple of days since this story broke. What are we talking about here? And at this point, we mentioned the press conference the other day, and of course, we all saw what those folks had said, Donna Fry, Marco Gonzalez, and Corey Briggs. What was absent there, of course, were alleged victims, voices from those folks, specifics on this. And it gets to be a situation where the folks coming forward, especially Donna Fry, interviewed her at length, and she said, I want to protect these folks. We know it's going to be a media storm, and it has been, and don't want them re-victimized, in her words.
That's right. The reputations of both Corey Briggs, Marco Gonzalez, and Donna Fry are on the line at this point because these women won't come public, won't go forward. However, I think we all at this table and society in general know that when women do come forward with sexual harassment allegations, it doesn't really end well for them. In this particular case, these women work at City Hall. Some of them do. Some of these women do business with City Hall. Their livelihood is at stake. Their reputation is at stake. Okay, so they leave City Hall, so they stop doing business with the city. But if they've made these stories public, their names are attached to these stories, how easy is it going to be for them to get a job? Now, I also want to add that some of these people, some of these women are in powerful positions. I ask, the people on this panel, what does it say about our society that in 2013, more than 20 years after Anita Hill was pilloried, after making her story public against then Supreme Court nominee Clarence Thomas, she was absolutely vilified. And it does not seem, at least from a societal perspective, that we've made strides.
Let's bring in other panelists. What do you think of that?
This morning, Lorena Gonzalez, Marco Gonzalez's sister, who was recently elected to the state assembly, she went on Twitter in a multi-part tweet, talked about how it's not only Bob Filner that engages in this kind of behavior, that there are other people in power in San Diego politics. Men. Yes, men who engage in this sort of thing. And she didn't name names, of course, and nobody would expect her to. But that goes to your point that I think, this, could be, more of it's a strange, possibly widespread problem in this day and age when we have been sort of sensitized to this issue going back to the Anita Hill days.
Now, Carl, we're 2 days out from when we broke this story now. And again, as Amit has comprehensively explained, the folks haven't come forward who are the alleged victims here. Does at some point public opinion or the media start saying, well, wait a minute, how credible is this? What are we talking about, especially, in
well,
the
at some
specifics?
point that could happen. It's already happening for supporters of Bob Filner, for the mayor himself. He's hoping this goes away at this point. Donna Fry and Mr. Gonzalez, Mr. Briggs brought this forward with 3 opportunities for honor for the mayor. One, if this is true, resign. They went to him privately. Then they went publicly, and they want him to do the honorable thing of not dragging these women through the mud, as it were, to keep his office. He's hoping that the apology will be good enough and they'll go away, but this is now out of all of their hands because other women are going to be coming forward. There's already allegations that they're coming forward. Someone's going to file a lawsuit down the pike, and something will come out. The only thing worse for the mayor at this point than unsubstantiated allegation will be a substantiated allegation. So be careful what you wish for.
And Mark, I can tell you that there is a split within the Democratic Party behind the scenes right now. As we speak, there are those within the Democratic Party leadership in San Diego who say, come on, folks, Corey Briggs, Marco Gonzalez, okay, enough. The mayor has come out. He has issued a mea culpa. He says he's getting help. Let's leave it there. Let's give him a chance. The other folks are saying, you know what? We gave the mayor a chance. We went to speak to him privately, and he said he would change his ways. We've got credible evidence that he didn't change his ways. It's time for him to step down. Now, what they were saying, and the mayor probably knows this, what they were saying is, Mr. Mayor, we know the facts. We know you know the facts. We don't want to embarrass you, so we're asking you to resign. He, being who he is, has decided not to do that at this point.
And what's interesting today, the major political opponent, the editorial page of the UT, formerly Union Tribune, really did stop short of that, said allegations are too vague yet. We're not going as far as to say that. Although another publication that supported the Mayor City Beat, your publication, Dave, and you did support it and editorially endorse him. What are you saying now?
Yeah, there are some people that have said that the City Beat and the UT have switched bodies over this. So we came out last night. We published at about 7 o'clock a call for Bob Filner to resign. The reason we did that is because we went to the press conference. We heard Donna Fry and Marco Gonzalez and Corey Briggs speak, and particularly Marco and Donna Marco was very serious in the way he characterized the problem. He used the words truly reprehensible circumstances, in quotes, to describe what he had heard from some of these women that came to him and Donna and Corey. And Donna, as Amitha mentioned, she was very emotional. It was very emotional for her. So
for her, it's personal. It's very, very powerful for her.
Yes, she is like, you said she's beloved. She's sort of a matriarch at this point of San Diego, at least in terms of governance. And she is a very nurturing person by nature. And she feels this very deeply, and she cares a lot about these women. I talked to her yesterday on the phone, just sort of off the record, and she was still very emotional about it. So it struck me. I believe them. They say they believe these women. I believe Donna and Marco. I've known him for a long time. Then I heard Bob Filner's, saw his video where he says he didn't deny it. He didn't deny. He didn't say I'm, a serial sexual harasser, but he said I intimidate women, I disrespect women,
I need help,
and I need help. That to me said like Marco said, it's Bob saying, I know what you know, and I can't fight it. So to me, that was enough to say that he needs to step down, because I think it'll be difficult for him to govern effectively. And I don't think people should have to wait to find out if he can change his behavior, if he can calibrate his moral compass.
And that contradicts how these events generally fold out, at least elsewhere in the country. Look at Elliot Spitzer. Look at Anthony Weiner. The stories come out, they quit, they seek help, and then possibly they come back. He has said the stories have come out at least, and he says, oh, I'm getting help, but I'm not going to step down at this point.
It's interesting. You mentioned he rolled this out, obviously, and we just saw it here, in a DVD, in a scripted, very carefully worded, obviously, a presentation. Politically, he didn't come out in a press conference. He didn't take questions. I don't know if he's at events around town today where people can hit him up, reporters can hit him up with questions. What do you think of this politically and how he's playing this game?
Well, I agree that what you're seeing here is something unusual. You either do a Nixon, where you say, I didn't do it until you have to resign. You do a Spitzer, where you say, I didn't go to rehab after you've resigned, and then you come back. He's trying to tell the people of San Diego, trust me, I'll do better. I'll get help. Meanwhile, what about every woman who has to deal with him on a professional basis? Are we going to have a counselor and mediator presence? He's basically admitted he has a behavior problem. There seems to be that he's putting his own political ambition against the good of the city, and I agree with Dave. I do not see how he can effectively govern under these circumstances. Now, the Republican Party's got no soul-searching on this. They want Filner out however they can do it. It's the Democrats who have to be careful with this, because if they split and they support Bob Filner for simple political advantage, what price victory, it could backlash on them. Mr. Rubio, Mr. Riggs, Donna Fry definitely came out of this from a sense of moral outrage, but also, if you don't deal with this, what does it say about you? You're enabling the behavior.
And I have to tell you,
hold that point for 1 second. I do want to say, just learned of a tweet from Lorena Gonzalez, and you mentioned, of course, she is in the Assembly now, former longtime labor leader here, and Marco Gonzalez's sister, asking him to resign. She told the Union Tribune, the UT today, we want him to resign. I want him to resign, Lorena Gonzalez.
And Carl, you were talking about how the Democrats are responding to this. This is an issue that the Democrats have struggled with, at least the higher-ups in San Diego, for some time now, when Bob Filner, then Congressman Bob Filner, threw his hat in the ring to run for mayor. These allegations of sexual harassment had swirled around him for quite some time. People within the Democratic Party leadership in San Diego County sat him down, took him aside, and said, what can you tell us about this? Bob Filner reportedly responded with, well, no sexual harassment lawsuit has ever been filed against me. And that's where it was left at.
And specifically yesterday, Lori Saldana, a prominent Democrat in town, came out and said, basically, hey, I told you so. Hey, folks, hey, Democratic leadership here, this was a problem way back when, drafting off what you just said. So does he survive? Is he here for the weekend? And Monday there may be some more things coming here, as we're hearing from Marco Gonzalez and limited in their remarks today. They weren't satisfied with the apology, as we've said. They still want him to resign, they being Gonzalez, Donna Fry, and Corey Briggs, and of course we're seeing some other Democrats. We should note that we have a little scorecard from the council members. They pretty much split along party lines. The Republicans say step down now. Democrats saying, as you alluded to, we'll give you the benefit of the doubt for now, but this is a fast-moving story and a lot of pressure.
I'll say I would not, if I was the mayor's staff, order his lunch for Tuesday quite yet, because this weekend he's going to be under a lot of intense pressure. And the mayor was wrong. He's not the only one who can to fix this problem. He could fix it by resigning. Thereafter, it's up to the voters to decide, are they going to tolerate him being in? Was it good enough? There's always the specter of a recall election lingering right around the corner beyond the lawsuits.
Right.
Well, and here's another thing. We don't really know who's got Bob Filner's ear right now. I know that his inner circle obviously includes Vince Hall, his chief of staff, who he's been allies and friends with for many years. He's also got Lee Burdick up there, who is a lawyer and I think provides some counsel. He does not have a communications team. He does not have a sort of a genuine public relations person to help him through this.
And he had Donna Fry until April. She was on the staff. She was the open government czar, for lack of a better term. She resigned and said at the time, oh, I want to work more with the state group and et cetera. But obviously he was not listening to her then, and he wasn't listening to her more recently when she went privately and said this has become a serious problem.
But usually in a situation like this, you survive it if you have your spouse, your mate with you. And even his fiance left him earlier in the week. And for a lot of people, that's going to be damning, particularly when she said she has the highest respect for Donna Fry. And
go ahead, Amitha. We went up and spoke with Bronwyn Ingram yesterday.
Right. I mean, she is extremely reluctant to comment on any of the allegations that have surfaced this week, but she did say that she wasn't aware of them, and she's extremely reluctant to weigh in on whether the mayor should resign. But I just want to switch gears slightly for 1 minute. I think the big question mark here is where is the public going to fall on all of this? We haven't seen any polls done on this. Is the public going to say, wow, these harassment allegations are super powerful, but we haven't heard from the actual accusers. We think we want to hear more, or are they going to say, wow, this is enough?
How do we gauge the court of public opinion?
Basic math will tell you it should break 2-1 against them, because all the Republicans will weigh in against them. And if the Democrats are even evenly split, which I think it's going to be skewed against Bob Filner at this point, public opinion is going to weigh in against him. His question is, can you do the apologies, keep the show running long enough for it to lose steam and something else to replace it?
If you think of San Diego City Beat's audience as largely progressive, I can tell you that it's basically split among that faction. Our folks who are writing in on Facebook, I have people saying, I'll never read your paper again because you have asked the mayor to step down before you have any proof of anything. And I totally get that. I completely understand that. Innocent till proven guilty. But we're not trying to convict somebody here. We're trying to recommend what is best for the city to moving forward.
And progressives want to see their agenda move forward. A damaged mayor is going to be less likely to do that. If you go to a special election, Nathan Fletcher's likely, Todd Gloria likely. Democrats have a really good chance of holding on to the mayorship.
I'm frankly very angry at the mayor right now, because we supported him because of his policy agenda. We believe in his policy agenda, and we think he could have gotten some really, really important things done, and he's messed it up.
And for those people who are still supporting the mayor within the Democratic Party, I think there is a true sense of fear that, look, it took us so long to get a Democrat in the mayoral seat in the city of San Diego. We don't want to relinquish this easily.
Well, and Filner is a fighter. I mean, he's battling Bob, and we've made that point here as he's gone through these various confrontations and feuds, and we've made that point on other stories. It's interesting from his statement, too, going back to that for a moment. He says he wants to make a personal apology, and not just to the women, but to the men. I think he realizes beyond this sexual harassment allegation situation that his behavior has not been good to staff and other people he engages with throughout. We had the incident several years ago with the airport baggage handler, which got some notoriety nationally.
Yeah, and just a couple of weeks ago when he was having one of his sessions with the press, and the Alan Jones issue came up. Alan Jones being the former now former deputy chief of staff to Bob Filner, who quit, amid that whole Sun Road development scandal, which we talked about last week. But he said part of the reason Alan left was because of his Bob Filner's personality, and he vowed to us that day that I'm going to try to do better. I'm going to try to fix my behavior. So
there was also the issue of Bob Filner asking his bodyguard to physically remove a city attorney, an assistant city attorney, from a closed session meeting.
Well, and he barged into the press conference that the city attorney was having there and kind of took over. And
he's an intense dude.
He is.
Well, and that's the background against this. If this was just the sexual harassment and alone, maybe you survive that. But you throw the Sun Road, you throw the Borscht behavior, you throw the incidents with the city attorney, all the rest, it starts to add up, and it really undermines his authority and position. And Mike, I have just a basic question. His security staff, to the policemen who are on payroll and all, what did they see? What do they know? Because they had to follow him more intimately than a lot of other people did. Did they observe behaviors they should have been reporting? Did he use them to cover up some of his activities?
So he says he wants to get help. Can he get help at this point? Can he overcome these political problems? We should say on the plus side, he got cars out of Plaza de Panama very cheaply and very quickly. He got contracts with the 5 unions. You wonder if a Republican mayor could have done that. There's another number of other issues that he has spoken with out in the community, out in the neighborhoods, as he said during the campaign he was going to do. Many things, as you said, your publication supported him for. He's gone out and he's tried to do on the plus side.
Yeah, no, I run through the Plaza de Panama twice a week, and I love it. I think it's great what he was able to do, and it didn't cost the city $40 million as it would have cost if they went down to, with the Irwin Jacobs plan. Right. So that's what I was talking about. That kind of just get an agenda done, a progressive agenda, the one that really focuses on neighborhoods, one that focuses on poverty issues and homelessness,
fixing potholes and infrastructure problems. The city has.
I was personally very excited about him taking office, and I'm not anymore.
And that's why, if these allegations against the mayor are true, his conduct is basically a gift to the Republicans. They couldn't have asked for more.
But I think the Democratic leadership has to get more confident that they're winning this town. They've maintained a majority in the city council. They won the mayor's race with Bob Filner, a not particularly attractive candidate. Of course, it was against Carl DeMaio, so they kind of cancel each other out. But this is the trend line. And if they just can't sell it with Bob Filner because of his personality, they can find another candidate. They can move the agenda forward probably more effectively because Bob Filner is besmirching the whole agenda. People will say, look at those Democrats, you can't trust them.
Let's get into that a little bit, the nuts and bolts in the process. If he doesn't resign, a recall campaign, expensive and difficult, even in these circumstances.
180 days from soup to nuts, because you got to file the papers, then you've got to go out and get the form.
And you got to raise a bunch of money.
Who funds it? Who's going to finance this?
And we should be particular. The money goes to professional petition gatherers. It's not just, hey, folks, let's start knocking on doors. It doesn't work that way.
Given Bob Filner's relationship with the hotel industry, the business industry, I would not be surprised if there's some pockets out there that would be willing to pony up the money.
Does Doug Manchester step forward and finance this? Do other hoteliers step forward and finance this? I haven't heard anything.
All right, let's say, for example, he does resign then at some short period from now. What happens then?
You have an interim with Todd Gloria running as council president, and then you go through the process. He becomes mayor in the interim. Yeah, he becomes acting mayor, and
he still retains his vote on council.
The vote on the council. We're back to kind of like the old council mayor system we had, and then you go for a couple of months until they get a special election, and then it's a question of what candidates run, and it'll be 3 months to resolve it with a special election. It's 6 months or more to go through a recall election.
Okay, and we mentioned on the Democratic side, Nathan Fletcher, perhaps Todd Gloria himself, maybe some others. What about on the Republican side in the instance of an election, if it were to come up?
I don't think Carl DeMaio is going to run for this.
He has his sights set on Congress.
Yeah, which is the better game.
I would not put all my nuts in that basket. I think there's a chance. Carl DeMaio likes to be in charge.
Who's raised $500,000 so far for his race in Congress against Scott
If he
Peters
runs for
Democrat.
Congress, he's running to be one of 435 people. If he runs for mayor, he is the man. And Carl DeMaio likes to be the man. I wouldn't be surprised if he switches gears. You also have Kevin Faulkner, who is going to be termed out of city council soon. And everybody, he toyed with a mayoral run himself the last time. Everybody that I talked to believes that he will run again.
What about the city attorney?
Jane Goldsmith's not a citywide figure. I don't think he could muscle that in as a popular candidate. It's just not the personal connection to the voters for that office.
Of course, he's been so visible because he's been knocking heads.
To me, what's really interesting would be that, as Carl was saying, that the Democratic side with Nathan Fletcher and Todd Gloria. If Todd, everything that I had thought previous to this was that Todd was going to just follow Susan Davis and take her seat in Congress when she retires, whenever that's going to be. But I've recently heard rumblings about him possibly being interested in mayor if it comes to that, if the seat opens up soon. And whether or not it would be him or Nathan Fletcher who would get labor support. And what I'm hearing is that Nathan Fletcher might have a better line on labor support than Todd Gloria, which is interesting because he was a Republican not too long ago.
Yeah, not too long ago, right.
And one more word on Carl DeMaio. You know, soon after this story broke on Wednesday, he was very quick with sending out emails saying, you know, I will do what I can to help out in this time of chaos, really.
I wonder what the Irish betting lines are on Steve Francis and Micah Geary. Why not? We can throw additional names. See who comes back from
just
the past.
Just to liven up the party a little bit.
Yeah. Well,
Roberts.
It could be a wide open free-for-all, could it
Yeah.
not? Yeah. And some of the new faces on the council, perhaps.
Roger Hedgecock, you know, who knows?
Speaking of former mayors and
He'll no longer have the reputation of one of the shortest-served mayors in San Diego. Bob Filner would have beaten him out.
Yeah. We have just a few seconds left. We've had some trouble with mayors. Is it in the water here?
San Diego is like a small town in the Midwest in the Pacific that's never gotten used to growing up. And you do things that might work in rural Des Moines that don't seem to work as much in this limelight.
All right, we're going to have to wrap it there for this week of Stories on the Roundtable. I'd like to thank my guests, Amitha Sharma of KPBS News, Dave Rowland of San Diego City Beat, and political scientist Carl Luna of San Diego Mesa College. And a reminder, we have complete coverage of this story on our website, kpbs.org. I'm Mark Sauer, Senior News Editor, KPBS. Thanks for joining us today on the Roundtable.